Hey everyone, this is Dish About the Dish, where the foods we eat tell the stories of our lives. I'm so excited because today I'm talking to someone I haven't seen in decades, which is Hannah, way out in Kentucky, from me at least, way out in Kentucky. She's going to share with us some of her food influences and how to start off your garden. So let's go. Oh, so hi, stranger. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too.
Thank you so much for doing for this for me. I know I should wear my glasses because I'm trying not to wear my glasses often, but I can't. This last year, I can't see shit without them. So it's like, oh, I have to deal with the glare. But yeah, but thank you so much.
Well, it was a fun invitation to get, for sure.
Okay, so I always have to ask people, and it doesn't have to be too stressful, but what is your most memorable meal?
That is a great question. And it's one, since you gave me a heads up that it was coming, that I wrestled with for most of yesterday. Because, I mean, there were several. And I debated across like some of the ones from when I was younger, like the first time that I ate Indian food or the first time I ate pad thai. But where I landed was about 2 years ago in the summer. My husband and I, we traveled to England. We flew to London and then we took a train to Southwest Cornwall. And on this particular kind of gloomy, very typical British day, we set out hiking on what's called the Southwest Coast Path, which is actually 630 miles of hiking along the coastline. And it's like you and the sea. And oftentimes you don't even see other people for really long stretches of time. But we had hiked about 5 miles and it was 2:00 in the afternoon and I was starving and had that, like, I can't keep going. And we saw a pub as we were crossing through this village called Newland. And we knew nothing about it, but just thought, okay, like, let's go in there. And so we wander in, there's probably 3 guys sitting at the bar, but nobody's eating. We're like, we're still gonna get food, even though I'm not sure the kitchen's open, but they were nice enough to make some food for us. And so I had this Cornish crab soup that I still dream about. And it sounds so simple, right? Like, crab soup, okay. I've eaten a lot of crab bisque in the 25 years that I've lived in the South. And honestly, like, sometimes it has way too much cream or there's not enough crab. And it's just like, you're excited and it's not perfect. And this was so perfect. And my husband had fish and chips, which I know is a stereotypical thing to order. And his fish and chips were amazing too. Like, it was a huge piece of fish. And when he got to the very end of it, sometimes that will get soggy. And it was still incredibly crispy. And we had beer and chatted with a few of the locals. And it just felt like this perfect day. And like this perfect embodiment of sort of what it's like to be in a little fishing village on the coast of England. Teeny tiny little town. And I loved it.
No, that's excellent. And I don't know what it is about Great Britain, but they know how to fry things. Because when I was in Scotland, every place I went had the best chips. They were just the right size. They were just the right saltiness, just the right crispiness. And I thought it was just like that one restaurant. But every restaurant I went to, so they can fry things in that part of the world. They're very good at that. That's an excellent memory. And now it makes me want to go back to Britain.
I want to go back so badly. Like, last year, we started talking about it before the pandemic hit. And like, my husband was like, well, maybe we can go back. And then the world shut down and it was like, okay, well, I'm glad we hadn't booked it because that would have just broken my heart. Like,
yeah,
it was such a good time. So
yeah, no, I totally think it's funny that you brought up Indian food because I was going to ask you, in your social media feed, it looks like a lot of the things that you cook are Indian influenced. And where did that come about? Because I know where we grew up didn't have a whole lot of Indian restaurants. So what inspired that?
So the very first time I went to London, I was in college. And I had never had any Indian food in my life.
Me too. The first time was really good Indian food was in London, so that's so funny.
It was it would have been probably about 1995, thereabouts. And a good friend of mine from college, she was doing study abroad in Scotland. She came down and met me in London. We had no money, no money. And so you'd see these Indian restaurants where like the people with money got to eat in the dining room, like on the main level. But so many of them had buffets in the basement. And so that's what we did like several times. And the food was incredible and it just blew my mind. And I mean, so it's always been something since then that I love to eat out. And I had no idea how to cook it. And I mean, I have to rely on recipes and the wisdom of other people, but particularly since the pandemic where we locked down very hard, and I still have really mixed feelings about restaurants and sitting inside. So I've been trying to cook as many things and bring as much variety as possible, like into our house. And there are just some incredible cookbooks that have been relatively recently published that I think are very accessible. And I even discovered, I live in Lexington, Kentucky, and we actually have a grocery store that is an Indian grocery store. In addition to like other Asian markets in town, like there's a specifically Indian grocery store, which has made it really easy to find ingredients for it. So it's been a fun exploration. It's something probably mostly in the last 2 years. I probably didn't make a lot before then.
So what's been your favorite go-to Indian cookbook you've been using recently?
So I cook a fair amount from Chandra Ram's Indian Instant Pot cookbook.
Ooh.
And because I got on that bandwagon with everybody else. And she has written a really beautiful cookbook that it has different kinds of curries in it. It has vegetable dishes in it, several different biryani recipes, and everything I've made so far has been amazing. And just a weird coincidence, as I read about her family lives in Lexington, Kentucky. She's based in Chicago now, but like she actually grew up here, which was kind of fun to discover. But it's a really great book, and a lot of the recipes don't take a ton of time. I mean, there's inactive time while the Instant Pot is cooking things, but it's really delicious. And then the other book that I bought during the pandemic is called Fresh India, and the author is Meera, Sodha, and it's a vegetarian cookbook. I'm not vegetarian, but I was just fascinated like by the range of flavors. And so she just blew my mind, honestly, because the things in there are just different. She's from a different part of India than where a lot of restaurants that we experience in the States are from. And so lots of fresh vegetables and fascinating flavor combinations. And so I've been loving that book too.
That's good. That's something, because I know with me, like even thinking about cooking Indian food kind of hurts my head because there's so many spices and little bits to it. I get overwhelmed and I go, nope. And I know out of it, but it is something I enjoy eating and I would love to eat more of. And there are more Indian restaurants in my area now. But yeah, so I would love to be able to just start simply. And those are some good recommendations I'll have to look into. So you do something I'm incredibly envious of, which is gardening, because I lived in a condo for 12 years and I couldn't even grow herbs. And so I would love to have a garden, and you are an avid gardener. So how did that come about, and how long have you been gardening?
So I started gardening when I moved to Kentucky about 14 years ago. I bought a house, and as I moved in, I looked in the backyard and there was this large raised bed. It was about 16 feet long by 8 feet wide, and it was full of weeds, and it looked terrible, just ungodly. And I was like, I mean, I can't leave it like that. I mean, the rest of the yard looks normal, but that looks like an abandoned lot. Like, what's happening here? So I started working, pulling out weeds. And then my mother said, finally, like, you've got to spread newspaper over it and dump some mulch, and that will suffocate everything. And then you can start over. And she was right. She was right. So I did that. And the first year, all I did was put probably 3 or 4 herbs in the ground, because I didn't know what I was doing at all. But I was like, there's this space. Like, I feel like I should do something with it. And the herbs did fine. Because honestly, all you need to garden is sunshine and to remember to water if it doesn't rain. It's really all that it is to it. And so that started, and then each year I've kind of done a little bit more. Within a couple of years, I took a class from the Cooperative Extension Service, which is a thing that I didn't even know existed when I lived in Washington. But almost every county in the US either has a county extension office in it or near it, and it's run through USDA. And the one here in Lexington, Kentucky offers free gardening classes where you can learn the basics. They'll give you a free book that is tailored to our area. You can sign up for a little bit of money and they'll give you transplant plants and everything. So I did a couple of those and I was like, oh, wow, like this feels doable. And so I just started kind of with some of the basics, like planting green bean seeds. And again, sunshine, some water, and really like bugs are not terribly interested in them and it'll just work. And then it has become something of an obsession over time. And it's just, I really like, I don't know, I like the process of learning about new plants. Now I try to grow a lot of things that either feel like they're expensive at the grocery store or things I can't find super easily, except for, well, tomatoes and green beans, which are both available at the grocery store, but they taste so much better if you grow your own. Like, it's night and day. So that is the story of how I got into it. And now it's a little out of hand. Like that big garden bed is almost twice as big now. And I have some other high boxes and low boxes. And I start everything. I have grow lights that I run kind of starting at the end of February.
That sounds like a business. That sounds like an industry in your backyard.
I've had people joke, they're like, you could bring it to the office and just set up a little farm stand. And I'm like, well, it's not appropriate. Like the university would probably frown upon that. But it's, I don't know, I really enjoy like having a reason to be outside. And fundamentally, like, I love to eat. So the fact that in the summer, especially, that I can just walk outside after work and say, like, what do you eat? Right, and sort of see what's there and bring it inside and go. It's just, I don't know, that's what I love about summer, is that cooking becomes really easy actually, because it's just, let me go find what's in there.
Right. Yeah. So what would you, for someone who's trying to start gardening, what would you say are like the 4 things to plant first that are the easiest, least likely to be killed?
I think herbs, like even just herbs in a pot, things like basil, especially if you've got a really nice sunny spot, basil should be lovely and require just water, and you don't need to fertilize. I mean, they'll just grow. Well, you do live in Washington. There's less sunshine there. So.
Yeah, I had a basil plant and it just grew one stalk up the center and it didn't leaf at all. It just went one stalk, like super tall, like a tree, and then everything died. And I went, what is this? I hear basil so easy, but sun, maybe that's it, it's the sun. Got to get some of that.
What else? I think, okay, so I'm very partial to green beans because a homegrown green bean will taste nothing like anything you can buy in the store. And what's nice, most of the varieties are what they call a bush bean, which means you don't need any sort of fancy supports or anything like that. They're only going to grow 18 inches tall and they're just fine where they are. And again, water, I don't ever bother fertilizing them in particular during the season. Like I try to get a little bit of compost thrown in there before I get started, but I don't know, it's sort of Darwinian out there. Like you just have to like thrive with what's there. Cause I don't usually remember to go back out and fertilize things periodically. Like I just don't bother. So I think green beans, again, the bugs don't like them very much. So you have a high probability of success because you're not like competing with other insects that might want to destroy your fun. I also think, I mean, if you're a salad person, there are really nice lettuce mixes where they might put 25 different kinds of lettuce in a seed pack. And it's just a matter of kind of scattering. I mean, like maybe sort of gently Like you don't have to dig a hole. You just barely scratch the surface of the soil, scatter them, shuffle a little bit of soil back on top and give them water, and you'll have probably more lettuce than you can possibly dream of. And it's fun, like you can cut it at the baby stage and it will keep each of those little plants that started will keep growing more. And so you can have probably, well, until it gets super hot. When it gets super hot, then your lettuce will get really bitter and sharp. But up until that point, you may have like 6 weeks worth of lettuce for, I don't know, the $3 is typically kind of what a seed package goes for. So those I think are some of the easiest things. In lots of places where if there's enough sunshine, tomatoes will grow really well. And you can buy, and it's nice now because garden centers have lots more choices of, a wide variety of different kinds. Big tomatoes, little tomatoes, kind of all those, that fun. I think the only thing about tomatoes is just they are probably going to need some kind of support system. And they usually sell those at garden centers too, because some of the tomato plants that I grow, I have like a 6-foot trellis that like the grape tomatoes will go up the trellis and then the vines will keep cascading and they'll come back all the way down. And they're like 12 feet worth of grape tomatoes, which is a little insane. But when they go over the fence, usually the neighbors are really happy because they get free tomatoes. And they've asked before, like, do you mind that we like pick them? I'm like, no, because you should see how many are on the other side of the fence. Like, it's in the hundreds. So yeah.
Wow, that's excellent. Thank you so much for all those tips and for joining me and giving a chat. And yeah, thanks again.
Well, it was lovely. So thank you for the invitation.
So I again want to thank Hannah for sharing with us her tips and tricks on how to start off your garden, because basil are the ones I've always wanted to be able to grow, and it just seems to be elusive. Yeah, I guess I got to get some of that sun y'all been talking about. You can see out here today, it is gray and overcast. And of course, those Indian recipes, I want to try those Indian recipes. And if you haven't tried Indian food, you should. It is delightful. It will open all of your senses. Oh, and I also want to thank you all for joining me as well, because I do hope you're having a good time. And if you are, hit the like and the subscribe, because it does help out the channel. And of course, I want to see you again sometime in the future. So yeah, until then, hope you all have a good day. And until next time, y'all.